Leaders, it's the Keynote with Nate's Nuggets. And so today we're talking about no excuses. How, as leaders, how do you live a life with no excuses? Because remember, you have people following you. So today's first topic is called a paradigm shift. No excuses. You've got to, as a leader, have a paradigm shift. Now, I'm going to be referring to my first book. My very first book in 2017 is called Nate's Notions, You Matter by B. Nathaniel Smith. Again, Nate's Notions, put it this way. You Matter by B. Nathaniel Smith. This book is available on Amazon.com, Lulu.com. So one of the areas in the book that I talk about is how leaders have to have a paradigm shift. Whatever your old school ideology is, whatever you grew up believing, like for instance, my family grew up believing that, you're not supposed to split a pole. Old superstition. You're not supposed to split the pole. So if two people are walking and a pole is in front of us, regardless of how big or small or how wide or narrow the pole is, you're supposed to collectively go around it together, but not split it. Just superstitious foolishness, which has nothing to do with anything. But leaders, some of our thinking is the same way. Some of our ideologies are old, antiquated, and not relevant to the people that we lead. Now, what I'm talking about is really for leaders. So I know there are people who like to follow and are content with following, but realistically, this series on No Excuses is specifically for the leaders. So leaders, I want you to get in right perspective. I want you to line up with what you are supposed to be doing as a leader, not what somebody thinks you should be doing, what you are supposed to be doing based upon the value you bring and your worth. So let's talk about it. The first piece where you can't have any excuses in your leadership is your thinking. You must realign your thinking. So what do we need to do as leaders? First of all, we've got to have the mindset that expectations matter. Expectations from us to those whom we lead, but also the expectations for ourselves and who we're accountable to. Every leader should have a mentor and accountability person, or several accountability people. Why? Because iron sharpens iron. That's the old biblical phrase. You don't need to be saved or religious to understand when you're around sharp people, you become sharper. If you are around people who are negative, you become negative. So one of the things that you have to think about, leaders, in your leadership, if you're going to live a life with no excuses, you have to have a paradigm shift in your ideology and your thinking. You've got to expect greatness. You can't expect it from other people and then have self-doubt or low confidence in yourself. You've got to expect it even in yourself. Other thing you got to do if you're going to have a life of no excuses and you're going to have a paradigm shift in your ideologies, you cannot live in the past. You can't live in the past. Now, you can draw from the past. You can learn from the past, but you can't live in the past. I have a phrase that I say, make a memorial to your past. The only reason why I say make a memorial to your past is because you can't change the past. The only thing you can do is use the past as a launching pad to propel you forward for your future. You've got to determine, and here's another piece, you've got to determine that you want more in life. You don't want to just survive. You want to live. You've got to want more out of life. So if you're going to live a life of no excuses, leaders, first, you've got to have a paradigm shift in your thinking. You can't have new expectations with old ideologies. Won't work. Won't work. Don't be afraid to do something different. Don't be afraid to do something new. And don't be afraid to stretch yourself. Because leaders, in this season, we are all stretched. But stretching is good. It makes your ability and your limbs become more flexible, and you become more nimble, and you injure less when you're more flexible. So stretch yourselves, leaders, in this season. Stretch yourselves so that you can't make an excuse about, well, my past kept me back, or something that somebody did to me then. You know what? If they already did it, it's not going to change. But you can change. So here's what I want you to do. Have a paradigm shift. Stop making excuses for why you want to live in your past or why you can't be great. Greatness is not just about what you think, but it's about how you feel. And in addition to how you feel, it's about what effort you put forth to change what you don't like. So listen, paradigm shift, no excuses. We want a paradigm shift in our thinking and our old ideologies. Get rid of those. You have to start thinking about greatness in your life. And you have to start making strides towards greatness. Make a memorial to your past. You can't live in your past. I want you to learn from your past, but I want you to live in your present. Determine that your growth will happen even if you do nothing. And that's interesting. Listen, if you don't mow the grass, it will still grow. It will still grow. What am I saying? What I'm saying is this. Determine the type of growth you want to have so that your growth has impact. And when your growth has impact, then that means you have what I call the multiplicity effect. When you impact the lives of others, they take the impact you've given them, and then they take that and they impact the lives of others. And then those others impact the lives of others. It's called the multiplicity effect. There are people who are impacted by what you do and say who you will never meet and engage with. So your impact, your growth has to be substantial and it has to be relevant. Relevant growth. Again, if you don't mow the grass, it's still going to grow because there are other elements affecting the growth of the grass, just like there are other elements affecting your growth and development. Here's my last point. Your mind is your greatest asset. Use it, leaders. And if you use it, it will work for you. So let's do a quick recap. I want you to walk in an element where you don't have excuses. So this series, this week is about no excuses. So with today's topic, we're talking about having a paradigm shift in our ideologies, getting our mind right so that our effectiveness is pivotal. So we got to have a paradigm shift. We have to make sure we do not live in the past. We've got to expect greatness. I want you to live, not just survive, but you've got to live in the present and learn from the past. And remember, you have to grow because growth is inevitable. You're going to be growing. What type of growth and impact do you want to have? And remember, your mind is your greatest asset. If you don't use it effectively, it won't affect the people around you. But if you use your mind effectively, because it's one of your greatest assets, you will have such impact and your impact will be multiplied. You will impact people that you will never meet simply because you chose to not live with excuses. So leaders, no excuses. Get this book. It will change your life. Nate's Notions, You Matter by B. Nathaniel Smith on Amazon and Lulu.com. So leaders, as I wrap up, tomorrow's series we're going to jump into about no excuses. For tomorrow's series, we're going to talk about the concept of never settle. Leaders, you can't have excuses in your life and settle and then validate why you're settling. Doesn't work. You are called to greatness. You are called to influence. You are called to impact. You are called to increase. And if you're called to increase, impact, and influence, then we have to make sure you don't settle. Settling limits your ability to be great. So we're going to talk about no excuses, never settle tomorrow. Leaders, I appreciate you. All of my boss leaders out there, make sure you like this. Make sure you share this. Make sure you respond and add your commentary. I would love to hear what you would have to say and add to the concept of no excuses. We must have a paradigm shift in our ideologies. Leaders, I appreciate you, boss leaders. You matter. Have a great night, leaders.